From M&T Bank Stadium, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer live on a Friday in November, Black Friday, to recap the Ravens' 32-14 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. We are going to break this down from every angle, talk about this gut-wrenching defeat on Thanksgiving, all that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, Jonas, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good meal before this one. I hope you got some family time in, because the second this game started, everything started to go awry. And the fans, the 70,000 fans, the packed M&T Bank Stadium, hoping to see the Ravens win their sixth straight, left unhappy, and a lot of them left early. Ravens with a disappointing loss today to fall to 6-6. They're back at 500. Hope is not all lost, and we'll talk about later on in this episode why the AFC North is still very much winnable for this team. But there's no way to sugarcoat this. This was an incredibly winnable game. It was a game that should have been won. The Bengals tried their hardest to let the Ravens win it, and the Ravens just tried harder to lose this game.
Yeah, there's not much you can say nice about what the offense did in this one. They were bad. They probably should have lost by more. I guess if there's a amount of good luck that both sides enjoyed in this one relatively early that we'll get into, but this was just a totally feckless showing by the offense. Just,
Word of the day, feckless.
we talked about how uninspired, how undynamic, how unprepared this Bengals defense was coming into today. The worst defensive DVOA of any team that had played 11 games in FTN's charting history. And here the Ravens are coming out with 14 points, doing absolutely nothing after that initial drive against them. 3 punts, a couple turnovers on downs, 5 turnovers, just nothing that leads you to believe that this offense will finish, closer to number one in, that this offense looks anywhere closer to the best offense in the league than the worst offense in the league. And that is probably the most sobering development from this. Just like, I think we all expected that the defense at some point would take a step back, and certainly the loss of Nate Wiggins was a contributing factor in this defense getting cooked a couple times in that second half by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and just the weapons that he trusts and was able to connect with, and the offensive line stepping up against still kind of underwhelming Ravens pass rush. But the scoreline is what it is, and the Ravens just can't be happy to be sitting on this for the next week and a half.
No, and there are a lot of stats in this one that are misleading. The Ravens finished with almost 350 total yards of offense. That's not bad. The Ravens ultimately have more yards per play than the Bengals. There were so many statistics out of this game that if you didn't watch, you might say, looks like the offense might have gotten a little bit back on track. They didn't.
Even Lamar's final stat line,
is pretty misleading. Lamar finished
17 for 32. 246 yards, 0 touchdowns. The 1 interception was unlucky as a runner. Probably his best game since, I don't know, maybe coming back since at least a few weeks. 6 carries for 27 yards, had an 11-yard long. But it does not paint a accurate picture of what we saw out there.
No, absolutely not. And this offense has looked bad for weeks now. Lamar Jackson has not looked himself for weeks now, really since he came back from that hamstring strain. He had the 4-touchdown game against Miami, but let's be honest, that wasn't a perfect offensive performance. And the last several weeks have been ugly. Minnesota, Cleveland, the Jets, and now against the Bengals. And it felt like a house of cards. I mean, I kept saying, it doesn't matter how you win these games, just win these games in order to get back into the playoff picture. They got back into the playoff picture. They got back above 500. And then the ugliness that we thought they would have shaken by now stayed with them. I mean, it is clear that the offense is no better now than it was 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, a week ago. This offense is stuck in the mud. And whether it's the play calling, whether it's Lamar not being 100%, whether it is the offensive line, which we'll get to, they tried new things with tonight. This offense right now does not appear anywhere close to a unit that is ready to go deep into the playoffs. And I don't even know, we're back now in Pittsburgh week, and we thought that we might be past a lot of these questions. We thought that we'd be sitting here with the 7-5 Ravens team and feeling confident about their ability to beat Pittsburgh at home. And it feels like all of the ghosts from their past are coming back to haunt them, and don't feel great about this matchup against Pittsburgh now.
It's last week it was an offense that couldn't really do a whole lot on a down-to-down basis. I think their success rate was by far their worst this season against the Jets team that, again, no Quinnen Williams, no Sauce Gardner, not a whole lot to play for. And this one, they finished with, again, the worst success rate, which is a measure of down-to-down efficiency. How often are you doing plays that get you closer to the end zone? The worst success rate of any team against this Bengals defense. And again, this Bengals defense did not have Trey Hendrickson. It's two terrible linebackers in the middle of that defense.
They were the worst defense in the league, according to DVOA, through the first 11 games of a season.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful defense. And the Ravens offense made them look great.
We talked about this on the preview, just that the Bengals were allowing teams to score on basically 50% of their drives. Not always a touchdown, but still, you're at least coming away with something on your possession. I think the Ravens went 2 for 12 today in terms of total drives that ended with scores. So after the first one, it was 1 for 11, basically, if that's what it ended up being. Obviously, one of those is the end of half one, so you kind of discount that kneel down sequence. But this is just a horrifying experience for the offense. You see why
2 for 13, by the way, 13 total drives, but knock one out because of the end of half and 2 for 12.
You see why Todd Monken is trending. You see why Lamar Jackson is trending. You see why Isaiah Likely is trending.
Trending on Twitter or trending?
Probably trending on Spot Track too, just to see what these guys
Spot Track, or trending in the wrong direction.
Yes,
in general,
definitely trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
it's just a bad experience, and this Ravens offense has been able to keep its head above water in recent weeks because it has done, aside from that game in Cleveland, the smart thing. It has not hurt itself with turnovers. It's not hurt itself with costly penalties, and we had a double dose of that tonight. You saw Zay Flowers get flagged for an admittedly questionable offensive pass interference penalty on a 35-ish yard touchdown pass.
I'd say flat out wrong. I'd say just a bad offensive pass interference call.
And then you have Isaiah Likely just as a whirling dervish, turning something into nothing on that crossing route, get a 40-ish yard catch and run score just wiped out and turn into a touchback, effectively a turnover for that Ravens offense because the Bengals were hustling and he just didn't have the ball security that he needed to. And it's just as simple as that. It's hard to win a game, Captain Obvious here, when you commit five turnovers, when you lose 4 fumbles, when you have an interception that goes, not to point the finger too much at Isaiah Likely, but he was also a big contributor to that Lamar interception. Like, he's getting steamrolled up the A gap or B gap or whatever it was.
By Miles Murphy
comes up, knocks him back. Lamar can't complete that pass. And just from looking at the replays, it seemed like he was going to hit Mark Andrews for a touchdown, and it would have been a completely different game if he'd gotten that. But he doesn't. It's another turnover, and fans hit the exits.
Yeah, really, really ugliness. I mean, I think they flashed a stat at halftime on the broadcast that it was the first time the Ravens had 3 lost turnovers in a game since 2007. They end with 4 lost turnovers because of the
fumbles.
Sorry, 4 lost fumbles.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The one turnover that was not a fumble was the Lamar Jackson interception that you just chronicled. But the 3 lost fumbles in a game for the first time since 2007. Have they had a game where they've had 4 lost fumbles? Because Zay Flowers at the very end of the game, pretty much when this game was already decided, fumbles just for the gravy on top of the turkey, if you will, the icing on top of the cake to really seal this game. Can you think of a Ravens game where they had 4 lost fumbles?
I can't think of one, not off the top of my head. I tried to look on StatHead, but could not find it. They don't sort by fumbles. I'm sure they've played some messy games, maybe in the Lamar era where option handoffs have gone awry and the rain has contributed to stuff. But 4 fumbles is a lot to lose. And again, the defense did a pretty good job at being able to flip the field with stops on fourth down and everything. But just with Joe Burrow coming back from the turf toe with what we thought would be a Ravens advantage in the run game, even though we did like this Bengals rushing attack. We thought it was a little bit underrated considering just how infrequently they've been able to actually put their foot on a team's leg and just run the ball in the third quarter, fourth quarter. They just couldn't get the kind of field flipping plays that the Bengals could, and it's a huge missed opportunity for the Ravens because T. Higgins was missing, Trey Hendrickson was missing. If those guys are coming back in 2 weeks' time, then they're going to be back in Cincinnati, where it's even tougher. Where it's going to be an even tougher environment. Maybe the Bengals season will have kicked the can by then, unofficially or officially, but it's nothing about AFC North play, as we've seen the past 2 games in 3 weeks now, can be taken for granted. Like, this kind of stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, and I don't really think the Ravens defense could have done a whole lot more in this game to keep the offense in the game. I mean, they were on the field for 80 plays. That's a ridiculous total.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow was back there in his first game back from turf toe, slinging it back there. There were so many times where Jamar Chase just beat a man one-on-one or beat double coverage, and you just throw up your hands and say Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are just going to do that to you. You just can't. You're never going to keep those guys 100% in check. Chido Awuzie showed again why he was the best addition to this team in free agency. He was awesome in this game, was in concussion protocol at one point, came back out, and he just has changed this defense dramatically. He wasn't perfect today, but absolutely nobody was. What do you expect when you're on the field for 80 plays? And what have we talked about a lot this season? Starting with the Bills game in week 1, time of possession. The Bengals offense had the ball for 38 minutes and 46 seconds.
On a short week, no less.
The Ravens barely had the football in this game. You came into the week talking about explosive plays. The Ravens had a few plays that might have counted for explosives, but they shot themselves in the foot. The Isaiah Likely play would have been an explosive. That doesn't go down as a touchdown when it should. That should have been Isaiah Likely's first touchdown of the season.
Yeah.
And not to pile too much on Isaiah Likely, as you said, Jonas, this has just been a nightmare season for Isaiah Likely. I mean, he came into the year, you're thinking last year under team control. He is going into his contract year. He is younger than Mark Andrews. Maybe the Ravens decide to let Mark Andrews walk and pay Isaiah Likely big money. Or if not, that he's going to hit free agency and cash in. Starts in training camp with a very unfortunate broken foot, has to have surgery, and he just has not been the guy that we saw the last couple of years, whether it's the offense is just not schemed his way or whatever it is. He came into this game with like 128 yards, no touchdowns, and has the costly fumble, gets blown back on that block. Really, really nightmarish game for Isaiah Likely in what has been a nightmarish season for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the initial PFF grades don't mean a whole lot. They're still kind of evaluating everything that went right, everything that went wrong. But for him to go for 5 catches on 6 targets for a bunch of yards and only get a 62 grade is kind of revealing. And you just look at the other side of the ball. I mean, just like the Ravens, basically since they got Alohi Gilman, have been one of the best teams in the NFL on third downs because they've been able to stop the run on early downs. They've been able to get into third and long situations where they can kind of cover for their lack of a true alpha pass rusher, which I think reared its ugly head again tonight. But on those two final Burrow touchdowns, it's 3rd and 9. That is in the Ravens' wheelhouse. They should be sealing the deal on those, and instead you get Burrow, chucking up a prayer to Hudson, the Bengals tight end, who makes an incredible play for a touchdown against Kyle Hamilton. And then you get the Ravens, asking Roquan Smith to run with Andre Yoshivas, who was, I think, like a legitimate track star at Princeton, up the seam as the kind of pull runner and, some kind of zone coverage. And shocker, Yoshivas gets behind him, and Burrow does not have a single piece of trash to deal with in that pocket, is able to step up, deliver an accurate throw, gets another touchdown. And it's just like, what can you do but kind of shake your head and just acknowledge that there are severe limitations with this offense, severe limitations with this defense. They still might be the AFC North favorites in all this because the Steelers are just as flawed, if not more so. But I think this is a team that on defense had been getting by virtue of having faced a very, very soft schedule. And you get Joe Burrow in here, fully healthy, it looked like. You get Jamar Chase in here. You get a coaching staff that's familiar with what this Ravens defensive staff likes to do in some of these high leverage spots. And they took it to them. And, it's not all that surprising that this Bengals team was the one to crack that 20-point barrier. First time since week 5.
There's going to be criticism hurled at Todd Monken for, again, another week of it, for play calling in this game. Derrick Henry has that terrific touchdown in the first drive of the game. You're thinking this is going to be a Derrick Henry breakout game. He finishes the first half with just 5 carries for 33 yards and that touchdown.
Didn't get a touch in the second quarter.
Didn't get a touch in the second quarter. He finishes this game with 10 carries for 60 yards, that rushing touchdown. He also had broke off that great catch and run, the one catch for 44 yards that helped keep the Ravens basically alive in the second half. He did not get the ball enough. And they're playing from behind in a fair amount of this game, but not a ridiculous amount. I mean, how do you explain Derrick Henry not getting the football enough?
I mean, at least in the second quarter, it's a bit of the box score being misleading because on that first drive in the second quarter, that is the Isaiah Likely fumble. So they did what they had to, except hold on to the ball. The next one, they get into range, but there was the sack on, I think, 3rd and 10. That leads to a punt right around midfield. So again, they had been moving the ball pretty well, and then they just kind of got knocked back by that Bengals pass rush. And then the drive after that is obviously the Lamar fumble, where he is trying to stop himself from throwing. And he told us that he thought he had Zay Flowers kind of running into the middle of the field against a split safety look, I think cover 2 maybe, but then he realized that there was a linebacker dropping as a Tampa 2 linebacker. So that is basically, becomes a kind of 3 deep alignment if the linebacker is quick enough to get there. So Lamar held off on throwing it, couldn't hold on to the ball while he was trying to hold off on throwing it, turns it over, and there goes Derrick Henry's last opportunity to really get in gear again. And then, by the time that the third quarter really gets going, Bengals scored, Ravens go 3 and out in their first drive. Bengals score a touchdown, and at that point, things start to fall apart.
Yeah. Justice Hill, by the way, before this game, lands on IR. He has a neck injury that John Harbaugh described as a disc issue. That's not good when somebody goes on IR this late in the season because that means they have to miss 4 games. Puts the Ravens in a precarious spot right now because, you talked about coming into this game, Jonas, that if Lamar is not at 100%, maybe the Ravens try different things on offense. Maybe they try to utilize the screen game more, get the ball out of Lamar's hands quicker if he's dealing with a muddier pocket than usual. Justice Hill is your best pass catching back. Justice Hill, as we know, this coaching staff believes in him to be their pass blocker as well. Their guy in a lot of third down back. Their guy in a lot of red zone situations, and for him to be on IR certainly is a blow to this offense too.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine it's a little bit apples to oranges here, but imagine if it's Justice Hill taking on Miles Murphy on that block as opposed to Isaiah Likely, which is, I don't know. The weird thing about that Isaiah Likely failed block is cover 0 was a problem for the Ravens tonight. This is something that the Bengals, even going back to before Lamar kind of figured out his blitzing problem, it was something that they showed. If you remember when the Bengals came to Baltimore in 2020, 2021, and just really put a hurting on them 42-14 or something like that. That was a game where when they got the Ravens into obvious passing situations, they'd move up everyone to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they would bring 7, sometimes they would only bring 4, but Lamar just did not have an answer for it. And we saw that again today. This is a Bengals team that does not blitz a lot, but they did today, or at least they pretended like they would. And so what you saw on that Isaiah Likely failed block that ends up with interception, the Ravens actually did the right thing. The smart thing when you're expecting cover 0 is to basically get a 2-for-1 deal. So you bring a wide receiver or an eligible receiver that the defense is expecting to run out into to run his route. You bring him in, you motion him, and at the snap, the guy who's guarding him is expecting him to come out, but he doesn't. But he's actually there to cover a potentially unblocked linebacker. So the Ravens had the right call there, but they just didn't execute.
Right.
And
boom,
interception.
Yeah, that's what you get at the end of that. The inaccuracies from Lamar Jackson continue to be befuddling. At this point, we saw several instances of it. I mean, Lamar Jackson was off on the out route to Mark Andrews early in this game. He threw a ball way over the head of Isaiah Likely in the middle of the field.
Missed Zay Flowers
a few times. This has not been an issue for him. And he has said after the game, these are throws that he usually makes. We're just at the point now where, obviously, given the number of times that we have asked Lamar Jackson and the lack of answers to these questions,
we're not getting clarity this year.
No, we're not getting clarity this year on whether he is fully healthy. I mean, it has been the hamstring, the knee, the ankle, and now the toe. He came into this game with his shoes spatted again, Jonas. He said, there was nothing special done to his toe before this game. What did you think of more non-answers from Lamar after this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's about what we've come to expect from him. He's never going to acknowledge that really anything is amiss. John Harbaugh was kind of talking about him without ever describing him. He said that, when he was asked about Lamar, he said turnovers were the name of the game without saying that Lamar was the one who was at fault for a couple of those turnovers. So it's a tough situation. Obviously you take these guys at their word that Lamar looks okay in practice. Kyle Hamilton, again, gave us the line of the night when he said that even LeBron has an off night. Mark Andrews was telling us post-game that he has no problems with Lamar. He has complete trust in Lamar. Ronnie Stanley came to his defense as to be expected. But just out of curiosity, I looked up before this game just where Lamar was ranking in what Sports Info Solutions calls, I think, on target throws, and he was near the bottom of the barrel since week 9. Like he's probably anywhere from 25 to 30 among 35 eligible quarterbacks. Not the kind of company that you want to keep, especially when you see guys who play a physical style of game like Josh Allen near the top of that list. So, Lamar has gone through periods like this. I think there was a stretch around this time last year when Lamar just was not very accurate. His catchable ball rate was down. His on-target rate was down. I wrote about it. And then, boom, a flip switches and he starts to hit guys again. And, if we want to be charitable toward him, I do think he looked more lively today than he did against the Jets. There was a lot more out of structure improvisation, a lot more out of structure brilliance from him. That there were throws that he made that maybe on another game or thrown to another receiver and coming down. I think there were 90 total air yards on the 2 deep shots to Devontae Walker, one of which he didn't really approach the right way. I think the first one he kind of misjudged in the air and glances off his fingers or just goes past his outstretched hands, and the other one he just literally drops the ball. So I don't know if those were game-changing plays, but certainly would have been nice to have those explosives and go from your territory into Bengals territory and get Tez some more confidence. But I mean, just you got to have a better understanding of the time, the place, the Bengals defenders when, you see Joseph Asai coming off the right side because Roger Rosengard and Daniel Filelli can't handle a simple pass rush game. You have to know that this dude is bearing down on you, and you've got to tuck that thing away. I mean, the Ravens are so fortunate their defense bowed up as quickly as they did, because that would have been, that should have been at least 3 points. It should have been 6 points.
Yeah, there were so many instances in this game where there was a large range of outcomes. I mean, there were so many plays in this game that could have gone either way and resulted in 7 points for either side. Obviously, the Isaiah Likely fumble, which he is inches from the goal line before he fumbles that ball, that would have been 7. Instead, it's a turnover. The bad offensive pass interference call on Zay Flowers in the end zone, that would have been 7 for the Ravens. If the Bengals get in on the flip side from the 2-yard line after the Ravens turn it over, that would have been 7. And the Ravens defense absolutely bails out the Ravens offense there. So it could have gone either way in that instance.
If Mitchell Tinsley doesn't give up on a route down the right sideline,
he
probably runs under a Joe Burrow fade for a nice touchdown.
I mean, the touchdown in the corner of the end zone to the Bengals' third tight end, that was an outstanding catch over Kyle Hamilton, was just an unreal play that, that's one that you wouldn't expect a guy to make, and he does, and that is a play that swings the momentum too. And that was a play that the Bengals go up by 2 scores again. You're entering the fourth quarter, and just the air left the building. We've said before that this run has been, in a lot of ways, defying what we've seen with our eyes. The Ravens have won 5 straight, but they have not looked good doing it. And I think a lot of fans have, after the way that the season started, have been hesitant to get back on the train because they're worried about getting hurt again. And it felt like that touchdown in entering the fourth quarter was just enough to take enough fans out of this game verbally, vocally, and spiritually, that at that point it didn't feel like there was much of a chance, even though there was mathematically a chance that the Ravens were going to come back in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Ravens could still win out to the end of the rest of the season. You look at
it's not over.
You look at the context in which this game occurred. You have the Chiefs losing earlier today to the Cowboys. Josh Simmons, their stud rookie left tackle, I guess, is dealing with an injury and he's going to be out for a little while. They obviously don't have Trey Smith, so they're pretty compromised there. I think their New York Times odds of making the playoffs are now below 50%. We know that the Bills' run defense is especially vulnerable. I don't think I would trust this Ravens rushing attack to do anything special against them based on what we've seen for the past month or so. Daniel Jones is playing with an injury. We don't trust Bo Nix to do anything special in the postseason. So tonight was an opportunity for this Ravens offense to show that it had the stuff to complement this defense that, for the first half tonight, looked like one of the best in the NFL. Again, no T. Higgins, not a great Bengals offensive line, whatever. But instead, they fell flat on their face, and it's tough to forecast. Like, are the Ravens just playing down to these teams' levels? Because we've seen better efforts against better defenses. Like, we saw the Ravens do a good job against Minnesota. We saw the Ravens do a good job against Miami. Obviously, Lamar's taken some knocks in the intervening weeks, but this is a Steelers defense coming up that I think I heard on a podcast a couple days ago, second in the NFL in EPA when they pressure the opposing quarterback. And what have the Ravens not done a good job with? Keeping Lamar unbothered. So is it going to be like, is the floor even lower than what we've seen these past 2 weeks? Or can we expect just the Ravens to be ho-hum in every single game, no matter who they're playing?
Well, what's concerning to me is that, yes, Lamar looked sprier in this game. He looked a little bit faster on his feet, a little bit lighter on his feet, but he looks worse as a passer each week. He is missing more and more passes. And in theory, the Ravens didn't have a horrible plan, as you said, Jonas, against cover zero. Lamar missed so many throws that he has to take those short drops and get the ball out quickly, and he did, and he just misses the guy.
Yeah.
You can take advantage of a defense that is constantly blitzing if you're hitting the right guys at the right time, because they're going to be open. You're going to have one-on-one in a lot of instances, and he's just missing them. And if the Steelers continue if they throw pressure at Lamar, that is going to be a serious issue if he can't hit the open man. Let's talk about the offensive line, though. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, so much has been made about the responsibilities put on Lamar to figure things out before the snap. And I don't think we saw the best of Lamar doing that tonight, nor did we see the best of it, against New York or against Cleveland. There's obviously a bit of risk with every decision that you make before the snap, but the one that stands out to me, I think it was it the fourth quarter? I think the offense was coming in our direction, and the Ravens are in the red zone or close to the red zone, and there is a Bengals overhang defender, like slot cornerback, that is threatening the blitz. Lamar sees it, doesn't do anything, and the play is a sprint out to his side. And so
I think you said in the press box, if you see the blitzer coming, just kill the play.
right. And of course that blitzer slides, gets past Daniel Falele, gets into Lamar's grill. I think
They got him with the hard count.
Forces the pressure.
He showed himself.
Right.
And then he backed off and he still came on the blitz and they still ran the rollout directly to his side.
Right. There was another play, I think, in the fourth quarter where I believe it's another cover zero set up. And I forget if it ends with a sack or an incompletion, but like you see Mark Andrews, who has stayed in to chip, turning to Lamar as the rest of the Bengals zone defenders drop 10 to 15 yards downfield. There's no one guarding Mark, and he's waving his hands at Lamar. Lamar doesn't see him, even though he's 5 yards away from him. Lamar, either takes a sack or throws it to a crowded zone, ends up with an incompletion. And you're like, is this because Lamar is getting heated up? Is it because he doesn't trust the offensive line? Or is it because he hasn't had a whole lot of reps in practice because of these injuries? Or is it all the above?
Yeah. Let's talk about the offensive line rotation, because finally, we saw some change along the offensive line. It's been the same 5 guys for the entire season until today. We saw third-round rookie Emory Jones Jr. work into a rotation with Andrew Voorhees at left guard. Obviously, he missed so much time that you really can't expect him to, even though he has been ramping up for several weeks now. He's a third-round rookie. He is playing in his first NFL game. He commits a holding on his third drive that was completely unnecessary, wipes out a Derrick Henry run. That was unfortunate. It's impossible for us to glean too much, especially right after the game, from a handful of snaps from a third-round rookie. But what did you see from Emory Jones Jr.? Do you think that this is going to continue? And do you think that Emory Jones Jr. might supplant Andrew Voorhees?
It's tough to tell. Without having studied him too closely, and we don't have a great view of the offensive line based on where we are in the press box. It's tough to tell. He didn't get a great initial grade from PFF, but I think that is largely because of that holding penalty. And if you want to be charitable to Emory, a lot of times offensive linemen get penalized with holding penalties because the back is hitting the gap that he's not supposed to, or that the offensive lineman is not expecting. So you are grabbing a guy legally or maybe illegally, but no one's seen it. And then when the offensive lineman when the running back bends the ball back the other way against the grain, and the offensive lineman recognizes it and goes the other way, then certainly you get plays like that where you just, it happens all the time. So it's a good sign. I'm frankly surprised that he's come back this quickly, considering it's only been about, I think, less than 2 months that he's been in Ravens practice. So basically the duration of training camp, and here he is getting reps for this offense. He's certainly more athletic than Voorhees. I think the disappointment with Voorhees is just like, despite how being weight room strong he is, we just have not seen him be able to finish guys as much as the Ravens front office would have hoped. So you can only get better from these game reps, and you just got to hope that if he is indeed in the mix for snaps next week, that he is ready for Cam Hayward. He's ready for Derek Harmon if Harmon's back, because those guys are not going to make it easy for him.
Is it more a statement that Emory Jones Jr. is more advanced than he is expected to be, or is it more a statement that Andrew Voorhees has just been that bad that they're so eager to try anything that they are rushing Emory Jones Jr. into action here?
I guess I would say probably door number 2.
Yeah. I think also some fans, because his clips go viral every week, would ask, why is Daniel Falele not the guy who is getting put in a rotation? But everybody who, I was talking to Childs Walker during this game, and he says he was saying the same thing, which is, in a lot of ways, Andrew Voorhees has been worse than Daniel Falele at that guard spot. So it's understandable. I don't know if the Ravens would consider Emory Jones Jr. a swing guard. Can't imagine that would be great for his development.
Yeah, it is notable that he's gone from playing, I think, exclusively right, because he played opposite Will Campbell at LSU. So he was the right tackle there, and he's now playing at left guard, which is no small thing because it's completely different footwork, completely different hand placement, all that kind of stuff. So it's a good sign that he's been able to acclimate that quickly to a new position on the other side of the ball, where your kick step is opposite the one that you've been using for 3 or 4 years at LSU.
Yeah. On the defensive side, we should talk about Nate Wiggins' injury because he leaves this game at halftime with a foot injury. John Harbaugh said after the game, it's not expected to be a long-term thing. He said maybe he will come back in a week's time. It's nice that the Ravens have a little bit of a mini bye here to get healthy here, but that is certainly positive news because we saw what happened to the defense as soon as Nate Wiggins left this game. He is, their best outside corner with Marlon Humphrey in the slot, although Cheeto Bayouzi has been playing outstanding. Nate Wiggins still is going to get a lot of tough assignments. Cheeto, as mentioned, I thought comported himself very well, but Nate Wiggins' health right now is very paramount.
Yeah, I wonder how much of John left the door open for Nate Wiggins coming back next week, which to me is a little bit of gamesmanship, just making Pittsburgh prepare for the possibility of him coming back. I think the fact that he was ruled out as quickly as he was, to me, suggests that it's a little bit more serious than, rub some dirt on a kid and you'll be back next week. But I do take John at his word that, like, when an injury is not serious, it's not serious. So it's good that he didn't mention IR. It's good that he didn't mention anything season ending. Obviously, the Ravens have decent depth at that cornerback spot. TJ Tampa he had some ups and downs. He had a nice pass breakup after coming in for Cheeto at the end of that second half. And then, of course, he has the pretty costly pass interference penalty, I think, in the third quarter, where it was another third long and Joe scrambling and throws it up, and TJ Tampa just grabs the guy's arm because he doesn't want him to complete the pass. So learned opportunity for those guys. But obviously, if Nate is out for the next game, you're not too worried about it because it's a Pittsburgh team that runs with a lot of heavy personnel. And aside from DK Metcalf, not a lot of guys to worry about threatening you deep, but still.
But it is the most important game of the season.
That's true. Other than that.
Yeah. If you win that football game, you are in first place in the division. If you lose that football game, depending on how Pittsburgh does this weekend against Buffalo, you could be in dire straits. We're going to break down more of the playoff picture and what the Ravens have in front of them, what they need to accomplish in order to make the playoffs on the other side of another quick break.
For the 5th year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. Jonas's favorite segment here. It is the New York Times playoff picture odds that the Ravens win the division. We saw it as high as 88%. What is it at now after the Ravens lose to the Bengals?
It is down to 73%. But again, a bit of warning that these models change as they get more and more information. So my supposition is that, like, the model likes the Ravens because it thinks that its offense is better than it actually is. Because I don't know how you can look at what the Ravens did today and look at what the Steelers have been doing and say that there's that much of a difference. Obviously, they both have relatively tough schedules kind of coming down the stretch here. But, if the Steelers lose to the Bills on Sunday, which is obviously a realistic possibility, then the Ravens get some points in their favor, but not a whole lot. It just goes up to 76%. If the Steelers win, it goes down to 65%. But obviously the high leverage, one of the two highest leverage games of the year, the other being week 18, is next week. If the Ravens beat the Steelers, regardless of what happens in that Pittsburgh-Buffalo game, their odds go back above 82%. If they lose, it goes under 50%, all the way down to 41%.
Yikes.
So,
Draymond Jones percent.
So yeah, it's a dogfight, man.
It feels like we're on 270towin.com, but the stakes are much, much lower. Flipping back and forth. We've entered a precarious situation. It was all sunshine and roses while the Ravens were on that 5-game win streak, and reality came kind of crashing back that, this Ravens team is still, you lose that game, you're just 6-6. You are now behind Pittsburgh for the time being, and you still have to beat Pittsburgh at least once, most in all likelihood, to win this division.
And again, like there are a lot of outlets out there that are a lot more pessimistic after what the Ravens did tonight. ESPN Analytics, according to Jameson Hensley, their chances of winning the AFC North have gone from 70% to 57%, and their overall playoff chances, which are basically indistinguishable from their AFC North title chances, have gone from 72% to also 57%. So we're not quite at coin flip territory, but I imagine if the Steelers win on Sunday against Buffalo, we'll get pretty close.
Yeesh. Well, we will have complete coverage on thebanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Shout out to the Banner.
I think our Who's Got It Better Than award should go to Lil Jon, who performed the halftime show. So many, just banger after banger. Not, as Childs Walker pointed out, not the most diverse catalog of songs. Or it could go to columnist Kyle Goon, who I think got the biggest kick out of Lil Jon performing at halftime. He filming it on his phone. He was having a grand old time up in the press box.
What is the Lil Jon song that you think best applies to this Ravens season?
To this Ravens season?
Yeah.
I think this night would be Shots, because I think Ravens fans are probably going to be pouring out some hard liquor after watching that game. I don't know. What can you think of one off the top of your head? You've got his discography in front of you here, Jonas.
I guess What You Gon' Do is pretty fitting.
Get Low?
Yeah, but is that like that would be applicable to the Ravens' red zone struggles? Just get low and
True. Tush push.
Roll someone.
Low man wins.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot else. With all due respect to the great Lil Jon, who was the
Turned down for what?
Yeah, but what is the application there?
I don't know. Decline a penalty? I can't think of what. I don't know, Jonas. It is 1:42 in the morning on Black Friday, and I want to thank all the people who are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, X right now, commenting along. We very much appreciate it. You could be listening to us after the fact on any of your favorite podcast platforms, in which case, leave us a 5-star review, and I read it out here on the show. We will be back with another episode, I think, next Thursday, so it'll be a week's time before we are back with you, unless something happens in the meantime.
Are we considering Shots a Lil Jon song when he was only a featured artist on that with LMFAO?
What's LMFAO up to these days? That's what
Probably nothing. Probably some pretty depressing concerts.
They're probably laughing their butts off, I would think.
All the way to the bank.
All the way to the bank. Because I wonder if he did Shots tonight. I wonder if they get like royalties from something like that. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either.
While Jonas looks up the discography, you can read more on thebanner.com, more of Jonas's great work. He's going to be here until probably the sun rises. Gianna Hahn has great stuff as well. Kyle Goon has great stuff as well. We have you covered up until the Ravens game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Childs Walker, of course, has his 5 things. Can't forget about that. For Jonas Shaffer, at Jonas_Shaffer is his handle on everything. I'm at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. For Jonas, I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.